Kaase Racing Engines, everyone. Number one, thank you, John, so much for your time. And thank you for so much of the effort, knowledge, experience that you put into all of my friends' engines. And the Pluchino camp called me this morning before I arrived, and they wanted you to know that they were thankful for all that you do for them, and they wanted me to pass a hello to you before we got started. So Pluchino Camp to John Kaase here in Winder or Winder? Winder, Georgia. And so I pulled in last night and someone was still here working. You know, that's the kind of atmosphere that we have here. These guys are dedicated to excellence, and I don't think there has been a lot of interviewing going on here, a lot of shop tours going on here. I asked everyone I could find at the U.S. Street Nationals, have they ever heard of a John Kaase shop tour or a visit? Everyone said no, so this is an incredible honor for Real Pro Stock. And so I'm Scott Susie. I'm with you here today with John Kaase Racing Engines. John, how did you get into engine building?
Well, starting, you know, this isn't one of those deals that really I had, I'm going to build engines, this is going to be my life. You know, it's you know, when I was younger, I worked on cars, and, you know, I met up with some people that kind of helped me along as far as engine building goes in high school time, and, you know, so when I was in high school, you're not
a native Georgian.
No,
and
I grew up in Cleveland.
You grew up in Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio. And so we spent, you know, and from the time that I was 13 or 14, we spent time at the drag strips, you know, watching cars and getting ready to race. And
what was your home drag strip?
Dragway 42 probably, which is there again, in Norwalk, you know, and a little bit of Thompson Drag Raceway. So those three racetracks we went to a lot. So by the time I was 16, I had a car ready to race, you know, and that's all I cared about was just racing cars.
What was your car that you were racing at that time?
That was a 66 Comet Cyclone, but, you know, it was 1968 and 69, so it was only 2 or 3 years old, you know, and I bought a stripped out car, and then I had to get an engine and get it together, and transmission and all that stuff, had to get it together, and but when I got on my 16th birthday, it was ready to go, you know, so, you know, and I had to drive with a temporary for a while, so people had to go with me, you know.
That's pretty awesome.
And it was at the time it was a 15-second car, you know, 16, but it eventually got to be 11-second car, you know, and by the time I was a senior in high school, so even today that's a fast car.
So even today that is a fast car, but you took it from a 15-second car to an 11-second car with the modifications that you made and the analysis that you did on your engine.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, and so when you're talking about you're a senior now in high school, John, where did you go to college?
Well, I went to a couple of schools. I went to Lorain County Community College, then I went to Cleveland State University in downtown Cleveland, and you know, by the time I was done with that, it was about 75, I think. So I was in college for 5 years.
Okay, so you, and what were you studying? Mechanical
Well, I studied mechanical engineering.
Okay, yeah.
But you know what, by about the third year in, I really knew that I wasn't going to be an engineer. You know, but it's like, I don't like to quit, so I don't like to give up on things.
No, I
got it. It's like racing engines, you don't give up on engines.
So you're looking and studying the Carnot engine efficiency, and you're trying to understand how to make your cars go faster. Is that how we eventually arrive to today?
Well,
when did it spark you that I need to go further and deeper into engines and the power curves, and then get it to an application where I could use it and
I think that starts before you have a driver's license. Really, you know, you just keep after it, and you know that, and it's one of those deals that you really have to learn as much as you can to do as much as you can yourself, because that's the only way you can afford to race or whatever. And you know, and then even today, you know, we're constantly buying more equipment and stuff because it's what we need here. We don't want to send things out.
Yeah, and the more that you do yourself, and when you say that and that mindset, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Pluchino can. And a lot of these extreme real pro stock racers, they're doing a lot themselves to save themselves the money and to make it more of an, an efficient operation, but also an affordable operation.
Well, it can bankrupt you if you're not careful, and you have to use your senses to do what you can afford and do as much you can yourself. And usually the lower budget teams are better racers.
Right.
It's almost always that way.
Okay, so now you graduate high school, you take that time, and at 24 years old, 1977, you come down here to Georgia.
Right.
Is this the original site that you sat on when you came down here to Georgia?
Well, I worked for Dino Don Nicholson for 3 years.
Okay.
And that's why I moved here to go to work for him, because I was done with college. I was pretty much done with racing myself.
Okay.
And, a lot of it had to do, I wanted to get out of Ohio, because the winter was upon us again, and it was just a good time. I wanted to go to Southern California for a while, and I didn't have anything tying me down. It was the one time in my life I didn't have any expenses whatsoever.
So you did some time in Southern California?
Well, when I worked for Dino,
Okay.
we were there in the winter, and then we were here in Atlanta about 9 months out of the year.
Okay, and then so that was, and so how long did that period of time last?
That was 77, 8, and 9.
And that's your crew shirt, right?
Well, no, that's actually, I think that might be Eddie Sharpman's. That was before me.
Okay.
That Dino Don Eliminator shirt is, I think that's from when they had the '66 Comet funny cars.
Okay.
So that was 9 years before I went to work for him.
What happens in that time frame from 77 on into the 80s? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, even before I worked for Dino Don, I had a little bit of a shop going on my own in my garage at home.
Gotcha.
And then, it was pretty clear that, we had a really small budget. Most teams did back then. Our budget was really small, and I wasn't going to really ever be able to make a decent living. So at the end of '79, I decided to go back to business for myself.
So that's when really John Kaase Racing Engines,
Yeah, pretty
the
much.
engine starts.
Yeah, the end of '79.
The end of 79 into 80, okay.
Yeah.
So now you're starting and you're pushing out on your own in 1980. Were you married at that time, John?
Yeah,
Any
just
kids?
I married to Linda at end of 1978.
End of 1978, so
Yeah.
you're married a year. Any kids at that time?
No,
No,
not until the 80s.
not until the 80s. And so you're a young couple,
Yeah.
and you're pushing out on your own.
Mhm.
Wow. And now here we are today.
Well, originally I rented space at a place called Barnett Automotive, and I just used all their equipment. I didn't own anything, and that went really well for a long time, but I had an opportunity to go into a little bigger shop, and then I rented some more space at a different place at Nally's, still in Atlanta area. And then the beginning of 1999, we built this building and moved in here.
Wow. So 19 years
Yeah,
to get to that point where the side hustle becomes the primary,
yeah,
and then the primary is moved out of friends, if you will, or other working relationships into your own
Yeah.
established facility. And so for 23 years you've been here.
yes.
Wow. And then how many kids, you and Linda, how many kids do you have?
I have two.
You have two
boys.
kids?
Yeah.
2 boys.
Yeah.
One was in the military. We're both in the military?
No, the other one's a business consultant.
Really?
He's Georgia Tech grad.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is so awesome.
Yeah.
And then you're a military police son. Is he a graduate? Where do you go to?
He went to Valdosta State for a while, but then he ended up joining the military.
Okay, that's John. Wow.
Early about, I thought, 2004 or 5.
What an amazing story.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to say to your family now? Take the time and do that, because I think that's really special. If not, that's okay. We'll just move on.
Yeah, well, I would say that I have to really thank them for putting up with me for doing this, because this is not a 40-hour-a-week job, and so something has to give somewhere. Unfortunately, what gives is your time at home.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I'm sure Linda, just absolutely loves you for what you've been able to do for her, and I'm sure that, hey, there's no way you could do it without her.
No, I mean, if I had a lot of, I don't know how you want to look at it, it's pretty much she goes with it, whatever I need to do.
And that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I too have a Linda at home,
Great.
and Irene, thank you so much for letting me do all this.
Yeah.
Okay, and so John, in 1999, when you built this place, and now we're in your addition onto this place. We just finished up a tour, and there are so many questions that we could go into that could take us on a 5-hour tangent. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to stay focused on why we're really here, and the really here part of this is one of your engines just went 4.0, not Motor Pro Stock, Real Pro Stock, last year, John DeFlorian, and the name of his engine is Shaft.
Yeah.
And so, a little bit of the backstory. I asked John for sponsorship, and he doesn't do that. And I respect that. And so I came back to him with, there were 2 responses that I could give him. Hey, go pound sand, or what can you do? And John offered stats, history, and a visit. And for me, that was all I needed. And so that's why we're here, John. What are your feelings on the 4 flat with John DeFlorian? And there's a picture of John DeFlorian behind John. And so, this is very rich history here. John DeFlorian is one of my favorite drivers at PDRA Extreme Pro Stock. I call it Real Pro Stock. And John, shout out to you, and what a great you, Jeff Graber, the whole family. You're such an amazing man to make that happen. And that run, you can see that run. It was no easy feat. Heck of a wheel standard. John had to keep that baby heading in the right direction, and it was not an easy pass. But this is the guy that got it done for John. So what are your feelings on that, John, as we continue to push maybe into the 3s this year in 2022 with one of your engines leading?
Well, certainly we're wanting ours to be the first into the 3s. And we've been close, but there's other people who've been close too. There's been some other 4 flats out there with competitors of ours that I think we might have been the only one that was a 000, and there's always a lot left in a car, and you could have done something a little different and been in the 3s, but everything really has to be right to run that quick, and it's got to have a really good 60-foot time, because the motors don't have quite enough power to make up the difference. If you have a 1 flat 60-foot's not going to run in the 3s. Okay, so
and I think John had a 961 on that,
yeah,
which is
and
pretty
it has
impressive.
to be a really good 60-foot, but as the weather gets better and you make more power, it's almost harder to get a good 60-foot because you've got more power and it doesn't want to stick. So
during the
you almost have to lay up when you have that much power, and then there goes the 60-foot time again, and then you can't really run 4 flat. So it's hard to do it, and it really is hard to do it more than once or twice, with the starting lines and the way our cars are done.
And so, John, 4 of the engines that I saw today, Gillig's in here, Dave Hughes is in here, Pluchino's in here, DeFlorian is in here. So there are 4 engines that could potentially receive an update from you that could guarantee it or not. Can you say that?
No, we can't really say that because it's all really up to the way the car works out.
So the way the car works out, and so many different variables, but when I see those engines coming in here for a regular refresh, or is there some John Kaase magician genius secret that's going into these engines that's going to take it down into the 3s?
Well, every year you learn a couple of small things, but this year we've got a couple of things I think that'll help them, but we're not talking tenths. We might talk hundreds or 2, but 50 horsepower one of those engines is probably 100 or 2. So it's a big gain. You have to make a big gain to go any faster. It's not. Even the 500-inch cars are like that. They're almost maxed out. They make a lot of power per inch, but to get them to go faster is tough. It's really hard.
Okay, and when we come back, we're going to discuss a number of different things. We're going to get a range for cost on one of these engines that could go into an extreme pro stock, Real Pro Stock car. and we'll ask John another couple of sets of questions, and then we'll get out of his hair and move along down the road, and hopefully we'll get to see Bobby Bennett on the way home. But John, thanks. We're going to come right back.
Okay.
We have some sponsor information that we need to get out,
Yeah.
and we'll be right back. Thanks for waiting, everybody, and thanks for watching. Why do you say it was a 1 in a million shot?
Well, just because, well, it's, you only win once in a while, for one. But, you know, you got everybody with their arms up, and it was such a good picture of Bob, you know. And he's been our friend for years. So.